In our hemisphere and in this part of the continent in particular, Easter coincides with this eruption of blossoming and greening. Trees that through the winter you would have thought had had it are leafing out and coming back into their glory again. So here we are in the midst of all this splendor. It could even get you thinking about resurrection. And yet, for all this wonder, Easter is more than the return of greenery, the breaking out of blossoms after winter hibernation, as miraculous and as inspiring as that is. Spring that follows winter, while a gift every single time, we anticipate it, we wait for it, we look for it, we expect it, we count on it. Resurrection, on the other hand, doesn't just blow us out of the water, taking us by surprise. It does something to our perceptual field, our orientation in the world. It rearranges our bearings, gives us new bearings altogether. There's this unthinkable dawning of newness where none was thought possible. An intrusion of a way, a future, a life beyond what was even dreamed or longed for. We no longer live in the same world we once did. This is what the gospel stories, for all their differences in how they relate to the story of that first Easter morning, what they all bear witness to is the earth-shattering surprise that death didn't finish him in that ultimate, final, it's over way. This is the thing, we search for words to express it, to wrap our minds around it, all of which fail us. But the thing that doesn't fail us is his abiding presence. He will go ahead of you as you make your journey home. That's the message the women are given that morning at the tomb. First by the angel who greeted them there, and then by Jesus himself as they were on their way. Tell my brothers, he urges them, when they get home, they will see me. Notice, it's my brothers. The ones who fled, who fell asleep, who couldn't as much stay awake with him in his hour of need, who couldn't even claim to know him. And yet, there is not a hint of disowning them. Instead, what do we hear? Watch for my companionship. Do you see? This is not spring after winter. And please hear me, I am not dissing for a moment the gift and sheer goodness of spring. But resurrection is about the transforming power of God's love, opening up life where death has had its way. It's no mere happy ending, a return to life as it was, or a return of life that was there all along but hiding. It's about a beginning, about a new life, life out of real, total death, life that really wasn't there at all before. It's earth-shattering. That's what the Gospels are trying to tell us as they speak of, and suddenly there was a great earthquake. It's like arriving on the scene with our best hope being that of bringing some soothing to a wretched end, only to be met by the wonder of an unforeseen future already in motion. That out of a wretched end, a new reality is rising. And we are being summoned to run with it, toward it, to open up to it, love's transforming power. To let Christ's risen presence befriend us, become us, breathe in us, pour through us. Some years before my dad died, I noticed that he had taped a little piece of paper to his lampshade that sat right beside the chair where he began his day and where he would end his day, and in time where he spent much of his day. And on this little piece of paper, he had typed, "Begin each day with, I know that my Redeemer liveth." Now, knowing Dad, some days that would have prompted him to play that piece from Handel's Messiah. Like on the days when he felt the need for reinforcement, or when he felt the urge to lift his heart in praise. And on other days, I think that note to himself was a reminder to watch for the companionship, to trust the presence and the power of God's love. I think it had a way of orienting him in the world, grounding him in the reality, the landscape of resurrection. This is what Easter does to us. It opens up our perceptual field. It allows us to perceive with our hearts what may not yet be visible to our sight. It rearranges our bearings, gives us new bearings, so offers us a new way to be in the world, a new way of bearing ourselves and one another with love, a love that would even have us lay our lives down for another. These times that we are in right now, it seems to me that in the very face of all the suffering and death, all the isolation and anxiety around our world, there is already emerging among us evidence of love's power at work. It's there in our newfound appreciation for our connectedness, igniting a desire in us for another way, a way that is more generous and merciful, more just, hopeful. Already there is arising from among us this way of self-giving love, this way of putting ourselves out in word and song, in small and large ways, even the risking of life for the sake of life for others. We're glimpsing a new way of being in our world socially, economically, politically, religiously, a way that raises up life, and not some lives without others, but all lives. All of this arising out of this crisis. Is this not God already working a someday resurrection? At one point in one of his letters, St. Paul gets on a roll, speaking about the resurrection. "Listen, I tell you a mystery," he says. And then as he goes on, in his imagination it comes to him the sound of trumpets announcing resurrection. So that's got me thinking, what about this banging of pots these days? If you haven't already been part of that at 7 o'clock every evening, maybe tonight's the night to begin on this first day of Easter. And what if, gathered up in our pot banging, there was even more than that message of deep gratitude for the untold names and numbers of frontline workers? What if, gathered up in our pot banging, was the inspiration of Christ alive, Christ rising in us, breathing through us the dawning of a new day? Friends, Christ is rising. Christ is rising indeed. Alleluia. Thanks be to God. Amen.